Hospital porters, pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order. Welcome to Herpanwo TV and welcome to this Space Force, a reply to Steve Mumbling. Yes, once again the mumbler from down under has encouraged me to put photons onto celluloid because of a video he's made. In fact, it's two videos I'm going to be reviewing today. They're two videos actually that I decided to put it together because basically they sort of make the same point, or they're part of the kind of series, or I think part of two videos in a video and its sequel, so I can sort of handle them together. But Steve, of course, refers to me several times in these videos, like he always does. So I'm going to address it for that reason as well. But the more general points that Steve Mumbling makes. So what I've done is I'm doing these things a little bit differently now. As you remember, I'm using a different method, which I first tried out in my recent reply video to Christy Winters, which is rather than sort of skipping through the video, I've downloaded it and edited it. This is not a breach of copyright. I'm just doing it for convenience. I always dispose of the download when I finish making a film. It's just the reason I do it is so that I could, like, it makes it easier rather than just going through and trying to get it on the right timestamp. I just have everything in front of me, and whenever I come to what I do is I have edited a few bits out from this, so Steve will probably accuse me of doing. I'll come to that actually in the course of this particular video, because Steve often accuses me of doing things for motives which I don't really do things. So, for example, this often actually comes up if I can't see, if his comment is there and he can't see his comment, it's because, well, Ben obviously deleted it because he doesn't want to answer my question or something like that, which is actually not the case. The reason, the only editing I've done is I've cut out a few bits of dead air and a few bits which are not relevant. I've not edited Steve for any other reason other than brevity. I've not edited him. I've not edited him to try and present any kind of misleading image of what Steve is saying, or some kind of straw man to make it easier for me to respond. I promise you that. And Steve, when you listen to this, you'll realise exactly what I've done here. So, as with Christy Winters, I've put in just a little sound. I mean, you're going to hear the audio from this particular video, which is all you need, really. I'll describe any visuals that come up as and when they need to be described. But with Christy Winters, I mean, I chose just a little short clip of a sound which indicated when I've reached the end of one segment, I need to go on to another, and I need to comment on another. With Christy Winters, I chose the sound of a cow mooing, which was completely incidental. It's had nothing to do with Christy as a person. It was just pure coincidence, unless it was some kind of subconscious thing. With Steve, I've chosen something a little bit different, which I think is appropriate. I think I have actually deliberately chosen a particular type of sound because I thought it was sort of related to Steve, and this is the sound.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Yeah, that, for those who don't know, is Penn Jillette. Penn Jillette, of course, is a skeptic, and so Steve is a skeptic, so I thought he might like that. Now, Penn is, I think, particularly renowned for his obscene rants, where he uses very profane languages in a very loud voice, and that little clip is one of these little one of the most extreme examples of that. So what you do every so often, you will hear that sound, and you will know that I've come to a point where I need to stop the recording and make a comment. And I've got a list of the various comments I've made in my notes. I should, just as an aside, despite the fact they're skeptics, I actually quite like Penn and Teller. I think they are, I disagree with them on a lot of what they say about in terms of scientific skepticism, but they're very, very good politically. They oppose Orwellian control, and they oppose big government and things like that. And they're sort of quite libertarian, which I like. So I very much endorse that. So I actually have mixed feelings about Penn and Teller, but generally I'm quite favourable. So and they're quite funny. I think they're both very funny. Old Penn, who's this loudmouth, brash guy who's always swearing, and then Teller, this guy he's completely silent. He never says a word. I think they're a great double act. So let us begin with Steve Mumbling's video. So I've got it here. This is the video I'm talking about now, and it's a Steve video. It's my edited copy. So let's proceed.
I've just been too busy to do anything other than leave a few comments here and there and respond to a few comments here and there. So
what the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
No, you haven't, Steve. You have left lots of comments. I mean, maybe you have been too busy to make videos. That's fine. It's your life. Only you know that. But you have been making lots of comments on my videos. In fact, some people complain that you make too many, and they say, "Oh, somebody says, oh, your comments reply videos are just like the Steve Mumbling show." Well, firstly, if that's the case, then there's nothing wrong with that. When people comment on my videos, I don't tell them how many comments they're allowed to make. And if they make too many, then that's just too bad. I don't do that. No. Steve can make as many comments as he likes. Other people can make as many as they like. It's not the Steve Mumbling show. It's just he happens to want to make more comments, which is absolutely fine with me. I mean, I quite enjoy responding to his comments, just like I enjoy responding to his videos. I think, despite our disagreements, this is a symbiotic relationship Steve and I have here. You realise, and that both of us benefit from the other. So anyway, let's continue.
There we go. I saw this on the TV yesterday morning, and I thought it was quite interesting. I thought it was interesting enough to share. It's a bit of an insight as to what the Space Force, excuse me, what the Space Force is all about, what it's really all about. None of this fanciful nonsense about fighting aliens, of course, be completely impossible to fight aliens. We could offer no realistic defence against aliens.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Alright, so, first of all, in a minute Steve is going to show us a little clip from a news programme, which I'll describe to you. You'll be able to hear it anyway, but fighting aliens is not fanciful. Now, aliens are like everyone else. Aliens are potential threats. Talking from a military point of view here, me talking to someone who's kicked out of Royal Navy training, yeah. But it is true. I mean, aliens, the idea of needing to fight aliens is not a fanciful one if aliens exist. If aliens exist and we don't know who they are, then some of them could be hostile. And the fact of the matter is, aliens are aliens, which means they're not just one thing. There are numerous different kinds of aliens, and indeed there's an entire taxonomy of different kinds of beings who are interacting with the human race right now, which you'd expect because you're talking about the entire universe out there. And look how much variety there is on Earth. All the different kinds of animals, all the different kinds of races and cultures and things like that among humans. So you would expect a huge amount of variety in the universe at large, and indeed you get that. You get the Nordics, you get the Greys, you get the Mantids and things like that. If you know these things exist, and I believe there are people within the state who do, then you would be very, very concerned about that. You would be concerned about what the motives and agendas are of these various creatures. And you try to develop ways to protect the Earth from that. And Steve basically says, well, there's no point, it would be impossible. Not necessarily. Who knows what we could come up with? Who knows what kinds of... not just in terms of technology, but in terms of strategy and tactics. There's many, many examples of nations of a lower technological level. We're talking about Earth now, obviously, but nations with a lower technological, in terms of weaponry, in terms of military technology, have a much lower level, defeating ones much larger. For example, the American intervention in Vietnam in the 60s and 70s, of course, was defeated. They're the biggest, most modern army in the world, defeated by some guys in flip-flops and sun hats. In the World War II, Germany had a massive technological advantages on the rest of the world. I mean, even leaving aside the secret Nazi superweapons, which I've talked about before, the Haunebu craft and the anti-gravity stuff and the Bell. Even like just talking about rocketry and cruise and jet engines and things like that, Germany was way ahead of the rest of the world. Yet it was defeated. I think if aliens exist, and some of them, and I believe they do, and I believe there's people within the world know about it, they're sitting around having meetings now, saying, "Who are these guys? What do they want? What are we going to do? What if they do want to take over? What if they want to do us harm? What are we going to do about it? Let's think about it." And they've been doing this, I reckon, for at least 75 years. They have been thinking these thoughts and having these meetings. So who knows what they could come up with? It's not a done deal. If there was some kind of conflict between us, Steve, it would not be a done deal. I assure you of that.
You get the idea that the Space Force is anything whatsoever to do with fighting aliens right out of your head. Science fiction nonsense. Now,
what the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
No, it's not science fiction nonsense at all, Steve. Now, the role of the Space Force is something we're going to come into. and I'll have a lot to say about that. I'll have a lot to, in terms of replying to you, and believe me, you might be surprised by my answer. But I'll let you continue now.
I haven't done a reply to Randy Walsh, a response to that video with Randy Walsh and the other goons in it. You know, the Apollo defectives.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Well, actually, since Steve made this video a month ago, since then he has done a reply video to us. That's myself, Randy Welsh, all the other Colin Sugrin, who, well, you know what I think about Steve and Colin. He has done replies to them. That's something perhaps to deal with at another time. But to be honest, on the subject of the moon landings, as I've said before, if you go through my catalogue, you'll see I think I've made 3 different reply videos to Steve on the moon landings. And what's more, he's made reply videos to me, and this is a cycle that could continue forever. We could be caught in an infinite loop of reply videos and counter-reply videos and counter-reply videos. I've decided not to make any more reply videos to Steve Mumbling on that particular subject. This doesn't mean I'm not going to make reply videos to him on other things. So Steve has made a video now. It's called, what's it called? Hang on, let's have a look. It's probably got some witty kind of... It's called The Apollo Defective Should Be Shadow Banned PMSL. It's a 49-minute upload on his channel. I'll click on it later just to give it a thumb down, but apart from that, well, I might watch it actually, but I probably won't make a reply video to it. So let him continue.
But first of all, let's have a bit of a look and a listen to this, because I think it's quite interesting. Now, this was on credit to Channel 7 television in Australia. This was the sunrise program yesterday morning, whatever the date was. I'm holding the camera, so I can't look at the date on my watch, but it was yesterday, and today is the day after. So let's just have a look at this.
Okay, Steve's now going to show... He's now showing us a clip from a news programme, Channel 7 Australia, as he said. Australian television, I should point out, is very different from British television, and indeed American television too, I believe. It tends to have quite a light-hearted feel to it, and I'll describe some of the little gimmicks they put into this particular programme.
Spending to protect Australia from what he called a poorer and more dangerous and more disorderly post-COVID world. But if it's sounding...
A post-COVID world? That sounds sinister, doesn't it? You know, post-apocalypse. There'll be a COVID Mad Max or something.
Frightening. There's a potentially greater threat a long way from our own region.
A United Nations committee meeting to discuss how to prevent war being waged from space has been postponed because of the coronavirus pandemic.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Yeah, that's convenient, isn't it? It seems everything seems to be postponed because of the coronavirus pandemic, isn't it? It's like, I mean, I covered this on another video, but it's just, and indeed on Hapanmo Radio I've gone into it in more detail. But it's like everything has been affected by the coronavirus pandemic, and it's affected in a way that seems to benefit the deep state. I'll let them continue. What you see here, like, there's a sign here that says defense spending boost. PM announces $270 billion for the military over the next decade. And that is referring to the Australian Prime Minister.
At a time when there are real fears about military activity in Earth's orbit. And we are teleporting Sally in to explain this further.
There goes the weekend sunrise.
Oh, that's interesting. The reporter now is now beamed into the studio. She's standing in, it's one of those stand-up studios with a screen behind her, and she's like beamed in Star Trek style in a... Oh, dearie me. Oh, how that's incredible. Very, very funny. That's Australian TV for you.
Budget. Well, Scott Morrison has expressed his concern about growing instability in the Indo-Pacific region. There's an...
It says, space the final frontier. Threats of war being waged in and from space. That's interesting. They use the word in and from, not just in, from as well. That's a very important point. I'm going to come back to that.
The potential battleground that has gone from science fiction to a clear and present danger. The space race is becoming very crowded and aggressive. Some experts say that means conflict is certain. From the very moment JFK pledged to
you can see now showing some footage of an Apollo rocket launching.
Get man to the moon, it's been hoped space exploration would be done peacefully.
Its conquest deserves the best of all mankind.
And I'll show this is a footage from now from inside the Apollo command module. You can see some astronauts there.
And its opportunity, peaceful cooperation may never come again.
But times have changed.
Now there's an animation of what looks like a ballistic missile warhead entering Earth's atmosphere.
Then there's a new space race that's getting ugly.
There is a race to the moon between the U.S., China, India, private companies. There is a new race to the moon. Who gets there? Who sets the terms? Who does what? Who owns what?
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Yeah, there is, it seems, a new moon race. Now, this is interesting, and this has come up before, and I'm sure the Steve and the other people who disagree with my views on the Apollo moon landing is going to have a lot to say about this in the coming months and years, and indeed I will too. But there is a new there's a lunar manned mission being planned, a flyby of the moon or an orbit of the moon. And this time the United States is not the only one. Russia is once again in a space race with the United States, but also China and India and other players are involved. Now, I think that's when it comes to the reality of this upcoming moon mission. I know that you skeptics, you Apollo believers, like Steve and these other people, the people on that forum, that spaceflight forum that everyone wants me to join and I just don't have time. I think you see this as a kind of, it's a trump card or it's an ace in the hole. That you're going to see this as a kind of vindication against what I and Marcus Allen and Randy Walsh and these other people has been saying. Now, I think you're being a bit premature if you think that, but possibly I'll say more later on when the details of this mission become more public and the development is going ahead. I know it is in the planning stages. Everyone will show it during the last comments reply video. Someone's posted pictures of the heat shield for the Orion spacecraft being delivered to the assembly building at Cape Canaveral. There's obviously, this is a serious thing. It's not just in the plan. They're not just planning it now. It is being constructed. What happens in the coming months and several years, we'll see how it goes. But I will say more about that closer to the time. But I think if you think right now you've proved the Apollo missions true, just by what we've seen so far, then you're wrong. I'm open. My position is completely falsifiable. If it turns out you prove me wrong and prove the rest of us wrong, I will accept that. But it's too soon to claim victory yet.
Space is becoming very congested.
Well, look, forget Star Wars.
There's several experts now talking, and there's like CGI graphics beside them.
This is the real space battle. Another country coming along, knocking our satellites out of the sky and causing real disruption and chaos.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Right, now, one of the things they're talking about, you see some pictures of it, is the Boeing X-37, which of course is the military space shuttle, which has it's been around for a while. It was classified, it's now public, but it looks like the space shuttle, except there's no cabin on board because it's unmanned. But because it's unmanned, it's much easier to construct and much easier to operate. It can stay in space much longer, and its missions, of course, it's run by the U.S. Air Force. I expect the Space Force will be transferred to the Space Force, I expect, at some point. Its operations are classified completely.
Tensions are not helped with comments like this.
Space is a war-fighting domain, just like the land, air, and sea.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
The thing about it is, it's what they talk about are true. I mean, firstly, the idea of satellites being shot down is real. In a wartime situation, satellites would be targeted, and it's a very interesting thing. This goes into more detail. Steve's video goes into more details about this, but this has already happened. There already have been drills. China seems to be particularly advanced in this sector. They have carried out live drills in a low Earth orbit in which satellites, basically they were spacecraft, unmanned spacecraft, put into orbit by the Chinese Space Agency, which have been tested against satellites. I think they actually downed an American satellite once. I think they were trying to, they had some test satellites when they accidentally shot an American satellite at one point. So it's true, but as far as what Trump says, okay, they're being unfair to Trump as usual. The mainstream media is being unfair to Trump. What would you know? Who would have said it? Who would have thought it, eh? The mainstream media is being unfair to Trump. because what he said is technically true. All Trump did in that little brief clip where you hear him just say a couple of sentences, just one sentence I think, is he's stating what military strategists have been advising for decades. That we're going to have to, that people, not in terms of overtly the extraterrestrial threat, but the covert extraterrestrial threat, but the overt threat of other nations and their use of space. In the same way that when we started traversing oceans, we had to build navies because of the threat of nations, foreign nations using the sea. And Steve's going to claim, oh, Ben thinks that's not what the Space Force is for. He thinks it's just about the aliens. No, I don't just claim it's just about the aliens. I understand that that is an element of the Space Force. I just happen to believe that's not the only element. As it says in this very news channel, threats to, in, and from space. Not just in space, from space. And that's the important thing. Anyway, Trump did nothing wrong there. He said, oh, it's not helping when he says that. He's only saying publicly what military strategists say all the time. You can read books that were published decades ago where they talk about this. I'll let this continue. There's another expert talking now.
Space Force, I thought, was somewhat seen as a joke.
And it has been by the team that's created a new Netflix series of the same name.
The president is creating a new branch, Space Force. Tomorrow will run.
Oh right, this looks good actually. This is a drama series. You see these military officers sitting around the table, and one of them's laughing when this guy says Space Force, and Steve finds that amusing as well. I have to check that out. It looks quite good.
What? Space law expert Professor Melissa.
Oh, wicked! They're showing a clip now from the film Moonraker, which is a James Bond film. It's one of Roger Moore's, which is great because it's partly set in space. It's a really good film. It's one of my favourite James Bond. It's not the best one, but it's certainly one of my favourite James Bond films. And there's this great scene where these astronauts get into a shooting match with laser beams. It's quite something.
There are international treaties on what can and can't happen in space.
The first of which was the Outer Space Treaty, which was formed by...
This is Professor Melissa de Swart, space law expert. All right. There is law in space. I mean, it's well, I'll let him carry on because he makes that point. They make that point in a little while.
Before we had humans on the moon, about the uses of space that would be permitted.
There's some Star Wars movie. They got the Obi-Wan Kenobi thing playing in the background. It says Space Force is no joke. Multiple nations develop military presence in orbit.
Under international law. In addition to the Outer Space Treaty, there are 4 other space treaties.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Yeah, this is typical Australian lightheartedness, of course. They have to play this music in the background. I'm surprised they're not using the X-Files theme. But there are space treaties. There was a lot of fuss actually because there was attempts to buy land on the moon. I think it was some kind of con job, but there was a website a little while ago offering people the chance to buy land in space. And this actually goes back. I remember a children's program from when I was a kid in the 80s, and they were talking about there was this thing about buying land on the moon. You could buy land on the moon and for development or whatever you wanted it for, in the same way you could buy land on Earth, and someone was selling really cheap land on the moon. This was put a stop to because there is like an outer space treaty about how none of the Earth's nations can possess a part of space, and it's rather like the Antarctic Treaty, which became about in the 50s, where Antarctica was essentially turned into an international park, a public domain. Indeed, that space has been made the same way. In fact, there was another scandal which I actually covered on. I actually made a video about this. I mentioned it in one of my videos. I certainly covered it on an article on Hapanmo Voice in more detail, where NASA tried to turn the landing sites of the alleged landing sites of the Apollo missions, like Tranquility Base and all the others, into national monuments. Which, I mean, if the moon landings were real, you could understand that, but this was vetoed by the United Nations. It wasn't because they don't believe in the moon landings. They just said you can't do that. You can't turn a part of another planet's surface into a national monument for the United States. Interesting, that, isn't it?
5 in total.
But they're related to countries, not private companies.
fucking fuck me!
Yeah, this is the oldest trick in the book, isn't it? And this is what they do. This is where the private companies like SpaceX come in, because it's the oldest trick in the book. It's been used for centuries. If the law says you've got to pull the troops out, you leave behind mercenaries. And we've seen this. They've always done this, and we've seen this in Iraq, in Bosnia, in all kinds of places. They leave behind these civilian contractors who they're actually armed security forces which are run by private companies. They're not actually soldiers, but they're actually operatives from private companies. But they're operating under contract, under license by a particular government to do the job that the troops used to do. In fact, this actually comes up in my books. In my book, Roswell Redeemed: Humanity After Disclosure. Yeah, available at all good bookshops now.
So now we have players like Elon Musk getting into space.
Yeah,
There are comparisons being made to other moments in history.
Oh, now we're seeing a scene from a Western film from Hollywood, where you see like cowboys and Indians charging each other.
Space could become the Wild West.
There's already been rogue behaviour.
You've had an Israeli mission crash landing on the moon containing a payload with some microscopic animals when you had...
What the fucking fuck me!
Yep, now this was the tardigrades on the moon situation. Now, I wrote an article on Japan My Voice about this. I think I might have mentioned it in one of my videos. I actually, on the Zohar Entertainment Group, they put a video up on their Matrix channel, on one of their channels, I can't remember which one it was, about this, which they put together. What's interesting is I wrote the script for that. I didn't actually produce the video, but I wrote the script. But they have these. What happened was this was in a craft. It was actually a public-private partnership that actually launched this craft to the moon, based in Israel, and they called it the Bereshit 1. Bereshit just means in the beginning. It's from the first line of the Book of Genesis, and they had on board these little creatures called tardigrades. Now tardigrades are these tiny little insects. They're not quite microscopic. They're about 0.5 millimeter long, and they're famous for being very robust. You can put them in a vacuum. They can withstand high temperatures. They can withstand radiation. You can even dry them out for like decades, and then you put water in, and they just sort of come back to life again. So they kind of hibernate. They're the creatures known as water bears. They're very common as well. I mean, they're found everywhere: deserts, oceans, ice caps. You can easily find one. They say just get a bit of moss and put it in some water, and the tardigrades will swim out, and you'll be able to see them. But anyway, this craft Bereshit 1 had some tardigrades on its as cargo, and when this craft crashed, unfortunately, it crashed on the moon just before landing, just like that Indian one did. Interestingly, the possibility is these tardigrades would have been scattered onto the moon. But what are they doing? The chances are, the estimate is they would have lived for a few days in the vacuum and high radiation environment of the moon's surface. But what if they sort of like, it just makes you wonder what would have happened to them. Are they going to evolve in some kind of monster, like in that Beans commercial spoof? I mean, it just makes you wonder, doesn't it?
An unauthorised launch taking place from India last year.
Issues that would have...
That's the one I was talking about, this unauthorised launch. That crashed on the moon as well, just before it landed, just like Bereshit. Now, I don't know what they mean by unauthorised. I mean, maybe this lady Melissa Deswart will know more than this, but do you have to sort of like get permission to launch a space mission, to land on a foreign body? Do you need permission from the UN or something? I don't know. But maybe they didn't get permission from the UN. It didn't work anyway, the craft crashed. But the Indian one, I think, did not have tardigrades on it, you'll be glad to know.
Been discussed by a special UN committee last week.
It says here, law of vacuum in outer space. The world grapples with how to enforce the rule of law in space. Ah, that's where the Space Force comes in, doesn't it?
Except the meeting was cancelled for the first time since it met in 1959 because of COVID-19.
Ah, what you know, good old COVID-19.
But there's no appetite at an international level for a large multilateral treaty.
The space agencies like to work together, but the governments and the militaries don't.
ANU Astro...
Now, it's interesting about space treaties. Now, this is what Carol Rosin has been putting out. She's been pushing for a treaty which bans the weaponization of space. This was based on her. You remember her talk at the Disclosure Project press conference in 2001, where she describes this discussion she had in the mid-70s with Werner von Braun, that that they were planning to weaponize space, and it was all, and this was to do with they would claim there was an extraterrestrial threat. It was the last card to create the New World Order, and that I'm going to come on to that because Steve brings this up as well later on. But she hasn't been successful with her draft. She's been trying to impose her draft treaty. It hasn't happened yet. Well, who knows? Let's just carry on.
Physicist Dr. Brad Tucker says space is already heavily militarized.
There's the U.S. Air Force that has a robotic space shuttle drone.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
That's it, and that's the X-37. This Boeing X-37 unmanned space shuttle, which it's probably just a fraction of what they've got.
The X-37B, that again, is not low. I mean, even Russia created a satellite, like the Babushka dolls, where they built a satellite, and a smaller one popped out of that one, and then a smaller one popped out of that one. And what those satellites are doing, who knows?
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Now that it just show an image of these satellites, and what happens is there's like a big satellite, and you open it up, and there's little. It's like the dolls, like the Russian dolls, and then these little satellite comes out. You open that up, and there's a smaller one inside, and that's Russian, and it's classified. No one knows what it's for. Oh, excuse me.
The chances of conflict in space, sooner rather than later, are anything but astronomical.
Inevitably there will be conflict, so how do we prevent that so it doesn't go into full-blown space war?
Before we even get to, firing a weapon or crashing a satellite into another satellite, there's a lot more things like cyber attacks on satellites that we probably should be much more worried about.
You never know. If you annoy one country and they knock your satellites out, suddenly you don't have communications, you don't have GPS that you're used to, and military satellites are gone too.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Yeah. Interestingly, there was a company that was about to go out of business that produced manual typewriters. There's those clickety-clack things you had before computers were invented. They've just had orders for thousands of them. People are buying up manual typewriters. These old things that were made obsolete like a couple of decades ago, they're coming back in. Lots of others like analog radios and things like that, even like wired communication of an old type. It seems like the security experts know more than we do about the capabilities of cyber warfare. That in the event of all-out war, they would literally destroy the communications grid, either by literally shooting the satellites out of the sky. So you'd have these killer satellites, these killer craft that were sent up by the space forces of various nations that would literally target the satellites and shoot them down, or they would be hacked by military grade hackers and viruses, malware, military grade malware. And if that happened, of course, we would be in a situation where we would need some alternative. And this is why there's like sound powered phones, there's like more primitive forms of electronics being used, all kinds of things. They have these backup things. It's really, I've seen some, I've spoken to some of the people who like install these things, and they said they have these mag amps, these really old style mechanical computers, part mechanical, part electrical computers that were used in the early days of electronics in the 40s. They're sort of modern versions of those coming out. The reason is they can't be hacked. In fact, nuclear power stations already have like mag amp backups, because just in case the main computer system fails or is hacked. Just in case some enemy decides to hack the computers of the nuclear power stations and make them all melt down to create like some kind of radio accident, a radiological accident, which is one of the tactics that an enemy could use these days. I'll let them carry on.
Even if the huge vacuum in space law can be filled, who would enforce it? Donald Trump? Vladimir Putin? Elon Musk? Or Steve Carell?
So the game of mental chess has begun.
Now, Steve Carell, I think, is a character from this particular series. Exactly. It's a good point, though. Who would have the authority to impose this law? What nation could say space is ours? This is what Trump was saying about America having space supremacy. I think he is responding to the threat of other nations, China in particular, in the quest to dominate low Earth orbit at least. But there's more to it than that, and I'll come to that later on.
It's hungry, hungry hippos at best.
And here's a fun fact.
It says, Space Force is no joke. Multiple nations develop military presence in orbit.
Our region covered by Australia and New Zealand is roughly 1/6 of the world's surface area. That means we're in the best position to watch 1/6 of the space around us. So there is a push for us to have a big say in how space is managed and legally governed.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Oh, for God's sake, please don't let the Australians control space. No, please, because the astronauts will be getting drunk. They'd be taking like 6 packs of beer up on every mission, and they'd be downing them all. You know, be going, have another tubey, mate. Yeah, down another tube. Yeah, God, this is great, isn't it? Yeah, and they'd be crashing into planets, and they'd be falling down into the Earth's atmosphere and burning up. Oh God, keep the Australians out of space. That's my treaty.
There we go. A little clip
Steve's
there
back.
from Sunrise Channel 7 TV yesterday morning about the Space Force and what the Space Force is really all about.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
You know, I've never denied, Steve, that the Space Force is for all those things. There's nothing in that particular clip you showed me that I disagree with. The thing is, it's not just about that. There is a covert nature to the Space Force, and it is to do with extraterrestrial intelligence. I'll let Steve carry on.
Nothing whatsoever to do with fighting Pleiadians or the Draco.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Well, the thing about the Draco, the thing is, the Pleiadians are the good guys. I mean, you've seen Carol Noonan. I've talked about that Carol Noonan before. She has contact with these beings. The Pleiadians are actually benevolent. They're actually trying to help humanity ascend to a higher level of spiritual awareness. The Draco are like they're actually not the same as the interdimensional reptilians. They're extraterrestrial reptilians, but they seem to be luckily a minority that have harmful intent to us. And the truth of the matter is, as for reasons I explained earlier in this film, yes, military strategists would be sitting around now. If you knew the Draco existed, what would you do? You would have to say, well, we're going to have to find some way to combat these people, these creatures.
Or other such science fiction nonsense. It's all about dealing with other nations that might want to have a pop at your space technology.
Well, that's part of it. Yes, it's both. You see, Steve. You watch the thesis you have made for the role of the Space Force is one that I agree with, but it is not exclusionary. It doesn't negate the possibility that it is also something to do with extraterrestrials. Nothing you've said here negates that.
And of course, they want to get back to the moon, and they want to stake their claims on the moon for the helium-3. So.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Yeah, the helium-3. I was looking. It's actually could be used some kind of fuel, isn't it? Yeah, something like helium-3. I should look this up, sorry. Helium-3, yeah. It's actually like helium is like helium. Helium-3, 3He, is a light stable isotope of helium with 2 protons and 1 neutron. The most common isotope is helium-4. Yeah. It says here, helium-3 has been found in the Earth's atmosphere, but also of atmospheric and underwater nuclear testing. Much speculation has been made over the possibility of helium-3 as a future energy source. Unlike most other nuclear fusion reactors, the fusion of helium-3 atoms releases large amounts of energy without causing the surrounding material to become radioactive. I've done an entire video. I've done 2 entire videos. 3. No, I've done 3 entire videos on nuclear fusion power, incidentally. Yeah. And there's a lot of it on the moon. That's the thing. There's a huge amount. Oh, it says here the abundance of helium-3 is thought to be greater on the moon than on the Earth, having been embedded in the upper layer of regolith by solar wind over billions of years. So if it's on the moon, you could just say, well, we want to get to the moon so we can get hold of this fuel source and use it to basically get somewhere else, and you wouldn't have like lots of gravity. You wouldn't have the problem of gravity or very low gravity to overcome. If you get to the moon, you can use the helium-3 as fuel and get elsewhere, which is true. I mean, leaving aside the secret space program and anti-gravity and things like that, yeah, it's absolutely true.
There you go. All right, well, let's see what else we've got I've just been so busy.
Now Steve's driving now. Yeah.
There was a couple of comments I was going to make about some stuff.
He's driving on a road, and it's raining. My goodness, it's raining in Western Australia, and it's cloudy. Who'd have thought it?
And of course, now I've started the phone. I've got the phone recording this video today. It's not...
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Yeah, it's Steve out and about. Yeah, it's actually quite nice. He's got like his phone. He worry. I've edited this bit out actually, but Steve worries that he's had his finger over the lens. I think he's holding it in his hand or something.
The usual camera, not the GoPro. Yeah, I was looking at that the latest Ben Emblyn Jones response video, and as usual, it's not a response. You know, saying, well, yes, I'm sure Marcel did another radio interview, but of course there's no evidence of that, there's no recording of that. There is no written statement from Brazil other than the one he gave the newspaper, where he's...
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Yeah, look, we've been through this, Steve. Like, I mean, the Brazil thing, I mean, I actually remember, oh God, am I going to have to look it up again? But I remember showing you where the stuff about Matt Brazil had come from, the fact that he changed his story. He did. I mean, I'm not going to go through all that again.
Sticks and tin foil.
And what was shown in General Ramey's office was sticks and tin foil. That's not what Jesse Marcel found. Jesse Marcel Jr. reported the same thing. His daughter now is now Jesse Marcel, or what's her name, the third. She is now saying as well that they within the family this was always very well known.
I haven't seen an alternative statement from Cabot either, so you know, it's just one of those. It's just one of those situations where move, mate, move.
Oh, there's a kangaroo in front of Steve's car.
Move,
oh my God!
Move! Don't have a look in front of me.
God, it's going fast.
And I was looking at the Miles Johnson channel, and of course that is just way beyond offensive rubbish.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Offensive, is it, Steve? Oh my God, have we triggered Steve Mumbling? Let's have a look. What's he talking about here? Because I mean, you look at his channel now. There's nothing. Even a snowflake like Steve Mumbling should be offended. There's Miles was in London yesterday talking about at the Trafalgar Square protest. I'm sorry I couldn't get there. He did a fast blast. He had Alfred Lambremont Weber on. He had a couple of other people. He had Seven on again. This lady Seven, and there's Nikola Tesla's airship patents. That looks very interesting. I've not seen that one. And there's another one, Paul Townley interviewing on Tesla. Tim, yeah. So, what's your problem with this? In what way has this offended you, Steve? Let him carry on.
Manna from heaven, you know, send these people your money for their car fund. And the other guy, that's the convicted fraudster, and he even admits he's a criminal. He was done for fraud in the UK. He was fined just under £5,000 for selling these quack remedies or quack healing techniques, you know.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Hang on, who are you talking about, Steve? We have Alfred Weber, Mimi Nelson, Seven. We have the Nikola Tesla things. There's Geraldine Orozco. I haven't watched all these. I mean, Miles puts up so much material that I can't always cover it. There's Michael Shrimpton with Remy Hall. John Irwin. Michael Shrimpton again. Now, the only person, there's Piers Corbyn, who's like he's a very interesting guy. Just Julie Phelps. Now, look, I know some of these people actually. Julie, I know. And let me tell you, like, who are you talking about here? You're talking about Michael Shrimpton. I think the only person who in the last month who Miles has interviewed, well, actually, I'll go back a bit further because you made this video about a month ago. Jerry Sargent, Marley Dawkins, any relation to Richard? Again, Tesla again, the Tesla guy, Paul Townley, Mimi Nelson again, and there's me and Colin on as well. Now, listen, who are you talking about? The only person who in any way resembles what you describe is Michael Shrimpton. Michael Shrimpton was imprisoned. Yes, he was imprisoned on a false charge. He was imprisoned. He himself is a barrister, so he's a trained lawyer, and he was imprisoned. Oh, I can't remember the details of it, but it was a big fuss about it a couple of years ago because it was to do with the 2012 Olympics. But there's no one else out there that I see that describes that. Now, I don't know much about the Tesla thing. Maybe you're talking about that. You'll have to just enlighten me because I've never heard about this. I don't know who you're talking about. And you made a serious accusation, so I hope you've got evidence to back it up.
Healing you with extraterrestrial frequencies, eh? Yeah, wow. Well, you see, the thing with frequencies is they are universal. So, for example, a frequency of 1 megahertz here on planet Earth is the same all over planet Earth. It's the same on the Moon. It'll be the same on Alpha Centauri. There is no such thing as extraterrestrial frequencies.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Now, Miles, I call him Miles. Steve, listen. You are misrepresenting the situation, or you are misunderstanding it. The person who talks about extraterrestrial frequencies, I've heard this phrase used many, many times, is not actually referring to actual frequencies. They're misusing the terminology, and indeed, the subject of misused terminology, and you basically attaching that to an accusation of deception is something that's going to come up later on related to me, and I will be addressing that. The person who says extraterrestrial frequencies is using unscientific terms or badly worded scientific terms to refer to radio signals coming from space. That's what the person is using them for, and that's all it is. So, you are, I don't know if you're doing this on purpose, but you are misrepresenting the point completely. You're misrepresenting the point that they are making. Yes, they made an error of terminology, but that does not attach to any deception. Let's let Steve continue.
Delighted, I didn't know that the Kerry Cassidy channel and the Miles Johnson channel had been demonetised. I was delighted to hear that. I think any discouragement, from them spruiking all this bloody nonsense is a good thing.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
So once again, Steve has done this before, and I pulled him up on it before, and it's very disreputable of you, Steve. Very disreputable indeed, because you are supporting censorship, because the censorship is against people you don't agree with and think are wrong, and that their ideas are unpleasant. So you are supporting the censorship of those people, thinking, oh, it's okay, it's only them. We give the government power. We give the government power to take the livelihood away from certain people, and that's great because then the people I don't like are disadvantaged. And it won't ever happen to me. The government are only ever going to do this to the people I don't like. They've promised me that. They honestly will only ever do it to people I dislike. And that's incredibly naive if you think that, because they're going to come for you. It's like Pastor Niemöller, first they came for the Jews, etc., etc. And you're going to look around when the government start cracking down on other people. You're going to look around and say, hang on a minute, I never agreed to this. And the government will turn to you and they'll show you, say, yes you did, Steve, here it is. They'll show you that little clip that you just said. You supported the demonetization. You supported. It's the government do this. They say we want to exercise our authoritarian muscles. We want to do this, and we're going to do it. We're going to do it by. We're going to do it by. But we want to do this to everyone. But we want people to support us. I know. We'll tell people we're going to do it to people they don't like. It's a very, very dangerous thing. It's extremely hazardous. I'll let Steve carry on.
Personally, and I know some of the people have actually been completely deplatformed. People like Ike, who's a dangerous lunatic telling everybody not to get vaccinated. And,
what the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Yep, David Icke has been deplatformed from YouTube and several other places as well. Luckily, he's active on alternative social media, which is now a very, very viable place where it's a very viable community now where people can go. I think it's pretty. I mean, I've done an entire video on David Icke getting banned. I think it's bloody awful. I think it's awful that I've been shadow banned. If you think David is doing something dangerous by telling people not to get vaccinated, you need to explain why. and maybe you have, maybe in fact I might have even done a reply video to you. But in my zombie video, I talk about this. I talk about the problem with vaccination, the fact that vaccination has been nominated by the American War College 50 years ago as a useful potential delivery system for biological weapons. Now, is David really doing anything wrong by warning people about that?
What is it? 5G is causing COVID, or it's all nonsense, absolute drivel. 5G has absolutely there's no connection between 5G and the COVID virus. In fact, I might have said this before, but if anything, the higher microwave frequencies are more likely to kill bacteria than not. So in that regard, it might actually be good for you.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Now, several people have commented on the issue of 5G and its connection to the COVID-19 pandemic. I've always said that there's no reason to believe that, in a sense, the virus is a red herring for damage done by the 5G frequencies. There's no evidence to suggest that. As for the general effect of 5G on people's health, I had an opinion which I'm reassessing now. Several people have said, well, it actually doesn't affect your health in any way. There's several different sides to this story. To be honest, I don't know the truth. I'm not going to say anything more about it until I know more about it. So that's the only answer I have for that.
It's just hilarious. It was really hard going, Ben's last video. I haven't watched all of it, but
you didn't seem to have any trouble with it, Steve.
I tend to listen to it while I'm doing stuff. And it was just the same old thing, sort of pointing out to him that there's nothing to the Roswell story, that it's all nonsense, and he said, oh yeah, they're lying, that's his standard response. Anything that doesn't fit the UFO ET narrative, they're lying. It's a cover-up. Cavett was part of the cover-up.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
The thing is, firstly, you say, oh, Benjamin Jones's videos are so awful. How do I get through them? You see, if you have no trouble at all, you are fixated on my output. You're like those two old guys in the private box at the Muppet Show. Why do we always come here? I guess we'll never go. And they have this kind of love-hate relationship with the Muppet Show. And you're the same with me. You have this love-hate relationship with me. You watch everything I do. You regularly comment. You're the most regular commenter on any of my videos. You put many more comments than anyone else. That's fine. That's cool. But don't pretend it's some kind of chore or some kind of something you have to endure. You enjoy it. And as for the cover-up, you see, the thing is, there is a cover-up. That's the point. It's not wrong to say there's a cover-up when there is a cover-up. It's the only time. It's the only thing that's bad. The only situation which you'd be correct would be if people claim there's a cover-up of something like UFOs or whatever, anything else, and there is no cover-up. If there was no cover-up, then that would be wrong, because they'd be saying, well, hang on a minute, but there's no cover-up, and you're saying there's a cover-up. Of course, it would be wrong, wouldn't it? But what if there is a cover-up? It's not wrong. That's the point. And there is a cover-up. I'm not saying Bob Cavett's a part of it. I'm just saying that there's or Mac Brazel. I mean, Mac Brazel sort of seems to have changed his tune a little bit, but it's I can't remember. I showed you the bloody page where it was all about Mac Brazel. But there is basically no one's doing anything wrong here. We're just saying what actually happens to be, and if there's a cover-up, there's nothing wrong with that.
And they just will not have it. Trump doesn't particularly believe in UFOs. Ben, of course, says he's lying, because he's so desperate for all this stuff to be true.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Right, Trump. I've done 2 videos now on Trump's position on UFOs. What Trump said was, oh, do I believe it? Not particularly. And he changed the subject to talk about the pilots. Now, this is impossible. He has to be lying. Whatever the cause is, it doesn't. Even if you don't believe in aliens, there's no way Trump is telling the truth there, because he will have been briefed on this. He will have been briefed on this situation. And his very own Department of Defense is saying there's something there, which Trump then says, oh, I don't believe in it particularly. Trump knows this. I've done an entire video on this. I think you've done bloody a reply video, or you've certainly commented on my videos on this. Trump knows it, and what's more, at some point he's going to say so. Now, I don't know when. I mean, it'd be great to do it just before the election, if it looks like he's going to lose, which is unlikely. But I mean, if there's going to be electoral fraud or something, this could be his October surprise. You know that phrase, October surprise?
And he's so desperate for Trump to be the UFO, what do you call it? The disclosure president. If only there was something to really disclose, eh, Ben?
Well, let's just...
Thing is, there is something to disclose. That's the point. There is something to disclose, right? You say, oh, if only there was something to disclose, but there is. This is the point. All the evidence converges on that conclusion, Steve, and I've explained to you why. You've disputed me, and I've debunked you. I have completely and utterly shown you if to be wrong. And we now move on to another scene. He's back home again.
Have a quick clip here from Ben.
Now, this is
one
me.
of his favourite arguments, and I think it's really quite amusing.
Oh no, Steve, this is simply not fair.
He's responding to a comment I made. But,
I can't remember. I can't remember which one. I mean, he makes so many. I could never remember which one.
Where I said to one of his other commenters, has he ever bumped into Ben in the shrink's waiting room? But anyway, Ben goes on to say,
It's honest. Do you think you can change 2 + 2 = 4 into 2 + 2 = 5?
Well, Ben obviously does. That's one of his favourite arguments, you know.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Okay, it's actually a metaphor. It's not an argument. It's a metaphor, and it's from Orwell. Of course, you know the scene where one of the ways they break down Winston Smith's mind and drum the free thinking out of him, the thought crime to get him out of him, is that O'Brien has to persuade. He's the torturer. O'Brien has to persuade Winston that 2 + 2 = 5. He mustn't just say it to get out the torture. He has to truly believe it because the party says it. So this isn't. It's not an argument. An argument would be where I'm explaining why you're wrong, and I do that all the time anyway. So it's actually a metaphor for simply logical processes. Saying 2 + 2 + 4 is a metaphor for logical processes leading to a correct conclusion, whereas 2 + 2 = 5 is a metaphor for illogic and irrationality. And that's what I mean when I say that. So it's not an argument, it's a metaphor.
Can you change 2 + 2 = 4 into 2 + 2 = 5? Now, Ben thinks that Roswell was an ET crash. Is 2 + 2 = 4?
Yeah.
And of course, in the case of Roswell, 2 + 2 = 5. It's nonsense.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Why is it nonsense? Why is it? You see, you could say again. This is the reason I say that Roswell being an alien crash is 2 + 2 = 4. Is because it's like that. It's a 2 + 2 = 4 is a simplified version of the same axiom. Roswell, you know, the guy, was it Charles or whatever, said it, put it very well. He put it into mathematical terms as well in other comments. 2 + 2 = 4. The evidence that an alien crash at Roswell is there. You say it's 2 + 2. You see, you're using the same, saying, well, it's obviously illogical. It's nonsense. Without actually explaining why. You see what I mean? You have to explain why if you think that.
But it's one of the favourite arguments. Ben always
it's not an argument, it's a metaphor.
Falls back on this 2 + 2 = 5 argument, and he always puts forward a woo hypothesis as 2 + 2 = 4, when he should be putting it forward as 2 + 2 = 5, because it's all rubbish.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Why is it rubbish, Steve? Why is it? You see, you say I put forward what you call the woo hypothesis, and that's 2 + 2, but it should be 2 + 2 = 5. So what you're saying, essentially, you're simply condensing everything you've ever said to me down into a single, basic logical equation, whereas I've always said the opposite. So all you're doing here is basically summarising our disagreements. you say, well, I should put the woo hypothesis, you call it, into 2 plus 2 equals 5 because it's not true. But you don't explain why. Every time you try to explain why, I simply prove you wrong. So you can no longer maintain this position. Honestly, Steve, how many debates do you have to lose before you change your position?
As I said in the previous clip, I think, because I've done these at different times, and this is a pretty awful video, I'm sorry about that, guys, but I haven't put anything out for a couple of months. I thought I'd better... I've just been too busy. I thought I'd better put something out to let you know I'm still alive. So this is a really codged together thing of a couple of things that I thought might be worth mentioning or might be worth showing you. The Space Force, I thought, was what triggered it. I thought that was really quite interesting. Now, yeah, so it's one of Ben's favourite arguments. 2 plus 2 equals 4 is the woo, and 2 plus 2 equals 5 is the logical explanation, when in fact...
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Okay, firstly, you've just exposed yourself, Steve, by your use of the term logical explanation. Now, you were complaining about other people saying extraterrestrial frequencies. Later on, you're going to complain about me misusing terminology. You're saying a logical explanation. Well, there's something that there's some good guys who do this as well. Now, Steve Mera, actually, he's a good friend of mine, and I think a lot of the guy. But this is one of his habit phrases. He says logical. He says rational explanation for things which are basically not woo, as you call them. There's no such thing as a logical explanation. There is only a logical method. The moment you start using the word logical or rational and apply it to conclusions, you are putting forward an a priori argument. You're essentially poisoning the well, which is a fallacy, because you're saying the conclusion which is logical, there's only one conclusion here. So for example, 2 plus 2 equals 5. It's illogical, which means logic has been used to arrive at this conclusion. In other words, it's the correct scientific conclusion. Yet that's never explained. The method could be anything. Do you see what I mean? Rational and logical can only be the adjectives you can only use to apply to a method. The conclusion is never logical or illogical. The conclusion is either right or wrong, depending on the method, depending on the scientific process, theory, hypothesis, conclusion, peer review, etc., etc. So your own misuse of terminology indicates you're not the arbiter that you think you are. You know. Let you carry on.
It's the other way around, and we'll just go on to a clip now that Ben deliberately always can't find. I've left a couple of comments on his channel, and I've left the timestamp and the video, and he goes to it, and it's always something not related to the actual clip that the timestamp relates to. So I left a comment saying,
what the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Yeah, now Steve is referring to several incidents actually where he has referred to my own videos with timestamps. He's put links in with timestamps. Now, I'm aware of that, so I'm interested to see what he's talking about. I mean, I do try to answer Steve's questions. Steve here is doing what he often does. He's interpreting my behaviour in the most ungenerous way possible. So, as I said, if he posts a comment and he can't find it, it's because I deleted it. Now, if he does a reply video and I don't reply to him if he does a video addressing me, I don't reply to him for 3 months, he thinks that's Ben's scared, he's run away from the debate. All these things. Now you're doing it again. You are assuming that because you put these timestamp comments in, which you're actually going to describe in a minute, and because there's some kind of mix-up where I get it wrong, that the only explanation is a deliberate deception on my part. Now that's very a priori, and it is an ad hominem. So let's just see what he says here.
Who's getting this wrong, Ben, you or me? And I demonstrate that by going to that video and the timestamp that I've posted twice, it actually shows the bit that I wanted to show, and that is in fact Ben saying if it wasn't for the world of woo, he would have nothing. He would die of loneliness. He'd be talking to footballs or whatever. Volleyballs.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Now, what Steve is referring to here is the film Castaway, which is a film starring Tom Hanks as a man who's abandoned on a desert island for 5 years, and he does lose his mind and becomes a bit schizophrenic, and he starts having conversations with a volleyball, this inanimate object. Now, I didn't when first Steve said this, I thought, what are you talking about? Now he's going to provide a reference soon, which actually does indicate that I did actually say these things, but we'll let him carry on, because I had no memory of this. It's probably because it's not because I'm selective in what I remember, or I'm in denial, or I'm trying to mislead you, or I just trying to avoid you, Steve. It's simply because there's so much material out there that I produce and others comment on that I can't recall it. I don't have a photographic memory. Carry on.
And that's what this is really all about. He can never admit Roswell was, a balloon. He always has to enhance and embellish the woo stories, because without it he would have nothing.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
So Steve is now playing amateur psychologist, which is bad. There's one thing I can't stand is an amateur psychologist. There's nothing I can stand worse, except perhaps a professional one. But Steve, you of course are now analysing my psychology, my methods, and it's an alternative. This is a kind of ad hominem, because it's an alternative to addressing my point, isn't it? That's all it is. It's an alternative, simply to explain why I'm wrong. Because you try to explain why you think I'm wrong, and I've punned you every time. Carry on.
Because as he is at the moment, he's invited onto radio shows. There's him and Miles Johnson and other guys on the Apollo Defectives, rather. But if he admitted the truth, that the Apollo landings were all real, Roswell was nothing more than a mogul balloon string. There is no secret space program. There's no manned secret space program.
Yes, there is. Roswell's not just a balloon string, and yes, there is a manned secret space program.
Then he'd just be a guy sitting in a bedsit looking at his shoes. That's what it's really all about. And we'll just go on to the next clip, and you can see Ben actually tell us this himself in his own words. Right, now on a couple of
he's now showing comments now on his video. I mean, what can I say is just what I've just heard. I mean, Steve is basically, I've said something he doesn't agree with, and he's writing it off as just some kind of psychological phenomenon. It's because of my mindset, rather than me being wrong.
Twice, I think, when Ben has mentioned this on his reply videos, which of course have no such thing.
I reply to every damn comment you put there, Steve. What do you say? It's no such thing. Some of these are almost 10 hours long.
He said, he goes to the video, goes to the timestamp, and he says, yeah, I really don't know what you're talking about here, Steve, because the time...
If I say that, it's because I mean it.
Timestamp he goes to apparently is nothing whatsoever to do with the point I'm trying to make. And he goes, well, I don't know what you're trying to say here, Steve. And I think he's deliberately missing this timestamp because he's looked at it and he knows I'm right.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
You see, I told you Steve would do this. Because this has happened, and it may well be some kind of mix-up, I'm not sure, and we'll go into more details. But because this has happened, because he puts timestamps in, and I click on them and I say, hey, what's this all about? Steve has jumped to the conclusion, which you've just heard, that I'm deliberately avoiding addressing the points he makes in these timestamps, rather than saying, look, what's going on here, Ben? Maybe there's some kind of mix-up. He's assuming that there's that there's sort of there's misdemeanor on my part. He's assuming it's his immediate conclusion, without even considering any other, which just shows he's very, very prejudiced against me.
So he always puts in a different timestamp to the one that I posted. But let's just see. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt and. Let's just go to this video. So this is my comment history. Who got the timestamp wrong, you or me? This is what it's really all about, and I think this is why Ben always embellishes the ET story. He he says he's a researcher, but of course, you know, he isn't, because if he was a researcher, he wouldn't embellish the UFO stories.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Embellish? No, I am a researcher. I do research to find out if they're true. Excuse me, I got a bit of a cough. I investigate these things. I look into them. I see if there's any reason to think they're true. If I think there's reason, I think there's evidence, I say so. Other people like you disagree with me. They come along and they say, I don't think so. I then get into discussions with you. And that's how we deal with these things. Just to say, when someone says something, rather than coming out and just saying, look, I think you're wrong, or saying you think you're wrong, and then I explain why you're not, so you can't actually win the argument, you then turn around and said, oh, he's just embellishing. Either it's something to do with his psychology, because he doesn't want to talk to footballs, or he's just embellishing. It's all these excuses, all these diversions from the actual point. What is actually important here. It's something people do habitually. You know, you get these ad hominem attacks habitually. People do it and they don't understand that they are not winning the debate by doing this.
And I think one of his recent embellishments is that, you know, with the Nimitz incident, the UFOs were buzzing the battle group. There were submarines and battleships and aircraft carriers, and the UFOs were overflying the battle group. Well, that's not what happened, is it? Well, what we're told happened is that the radar detected these things about 200 miles away from the battle group.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Yeah, look, if I used the word overflying, then obviously I was wrong. But I mean, if you mean by overflying, and it does suggest this, and what it literally means is that these objects were directly ahead above the ships. So we were directly above the ships, in the sky above the ships. Now, if I used that terminology, then it was an error of terminology, but not of meaning. I didn't use it to claim falsely that there were UFOs directly above the ships. Because I know that didn't happen. I mean, the evidence points to the fact that these things were detected on radar. They were detected by the ships, by these Aegis cruisers and their radar systems. And then the aircraft, of course, is where you get the gun camera footage and things like that. But it was an error of terminology, not of meaning. It wasn't an attempt to deceive. It wasn't an attempt to embellish. It was an error of terminology. And as I explained earlier on, you use an error of terminology. You say logical explanation. And there was another example I gave earlier on where you use what was it? You talk about using the wrong words, which I talked about earlier on. Now that is something which you have used. You have, in a sense, embellished there, haven't you, Steve? You've done exactly what you're accusing me of. You've used an error of terminology. In other words, you're embellishing your position. You're saying a conclusion is not logical. Well, that's actually much more of an embellishment. It's much more misleading than me using the word overflying to describe a close encounter with a carrier battle group and an aircraft. My misuse of terminology simply refers to a difference of position, basically the zenith compared to 200 miles in that direction. But the encounter is still real. By you saying logical explanation, you are much more misusing language and terminology than I am. So, in fact, Steve repeats this point later out. I actually edit it out. Steve actually repeats this whole argument later on, and I edit it out. And I don't apologise for doing that, because I'm not going to repeat myself.
See, these sort of embellishments cloud the issue. If you're a serious researcher and you're trying to find out if ET really is coming here, you really don't need these science fiction stories. Ben doesn't seem to understand that, but I think the reason that he does embellish all this UFO stuff, and he so desperately wants it to be true.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Look, alright, I admit it, I have a bias. I have a bias, and so does everyone else. Anyone who claims they don't have a bias is a liar, and they're not lying to other people only, they're lying to themselves. Now, this is what skeptics do all the time. Skeptics have a bias. I might want UFOs to be real. Skeptics want them not to be real. And I tell you what, the skeptics I've met are far more irrational and far more hysterical than anyone on the woo-woo scene I actually promise you. I mean, the stuff skeptics come out with is unbelievable. You have joyriding, ice cream vans, you have weather balloons, you have you know, clowns from the circus, and all kinds of things. It's what the skeptics come out with is hilarious. It's unbelievable. In order to bolster their worldview, their bias, their desperate desire for UFOs to be nothing but misidentification, hoaxes, weather phenomena, things like that, they will come out with the most extraordinary, you know, pseudo-logical gymnastics that I've ever heard in my life. What's more, I try to overcome my bias. What I do with that is by interacting with the skeptic community, addressing the skeptic point of view, talking to you, Steve. That's what I'm doing right now. And I'm a member of Oxford Skeptics, the pub, for goodness sake. I travel to quite long distances sometimes. I do occasionally go to Skeptics in the pub in London too. In fact, I'm a regular at the Greenwich one. I want to try. I'm aware of my bias, and I'm trying to overcome it and be as rational as possible by subjecting my own position to scrutiny. Now, very few skeptics do that. I mean, some do. I mean, Professor Chris French and some others, they do. They get into debates with people like me, and that's fine. Blue Earth thing, you know, he gets into debates with people like me. But you know, most skeptics don't do that. Most skeptics live in this bubble, this echo chamber of the skeptic bias, so they can simply maintain they can simply wallow in their own bias. Yes, you accuse me of this when I'm the last person on our side of the debate, on the opposite side of the debate to you. You can level this out. Yeah, you accuse me.
It's because of the point I made when I refer to this timestamp on this video. Now let's just see who got it right. Whether I got the timestamp wrong, or Ben on 2 occasions deliberately went to the wrong timestamp in this particular video. Okay, so let's...
Absolute nonsense, absolute nonsense.
Let's just have a look at it. Okay, so this is the full woo with Ben Emlyn Jones, and it's on the Kev Baker show. Now, Kev Baker, it's pretty abysmal stuff actually. I've listened to Kev Baker only a couple of occasions when Ben said he's been on there, but he's one of these guys that will say, if you said to Kev Baker, well, you know, I went through this jump gate to Saturn, and I spent about 2 hours unicycling around the rings. He'd say, I hear you there, brother. That must have been a really interesting experience.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Absolutely not. Now, the video he's referring to is like it's full woo. Special guest Ben Emlyn Jones. I can't remember which show this was on because I've been on Kev's show loads of times. I'm kind of a regular guest where he has me on about once a month, so I don't know which one this is. So, I mean, as far as the timestamp goes, I can't actually confirm or deny what he's saying in terms of that, because I don't remember the show, and I don't know whether I don't remember my timestamp reply. But anyway, Kev, you misrepresented Kev Baker. Kev Baker was actually a very, very good radio show host, and he's actually, as people on the woo-woo side go, he's, as you call it, he's actually quite cautious, and he can even take skeptical positions. You know, he's a big critic of QAnon. I mean, he's done several videos with like Unirock and the Anti-Q Brigade, and he says no, QAnon's not real. I don't agree with him on that, but that's what he says, and he goes against a lot of people in the truth movement by saying that. So Kev is actually quite level-headed, and he's a rational person. If someone told him they unicycled around the rings of Saturn, he'd laugh them out of his studio, I promise you. So I don't know what is so amazing. I mean, Steve has a big laugh about this as well. I actually edited out this, but Steve has a massive laughing fit over this particular issue, which I don't know why, quite frankly.
Let's just go to 157.41 and see what happens.
There we go. And a big thank you. Yeah, almost 300 people.
This is me and Kev on the
YouTube right now. Big thank you to.
This is me and Kev on the show. It's like there's a picture of me and a picture of Kev. If you're familiar with the show, you'll know how it works.
All of you
I only usually get about 150, 180 myself, Ben, so I can tell you for a fact they're here to see you today.
Oh,
so
well, thanks very much, everyone. Thank you for tuning in.
No,
Much
we like
appreciated.
these topics, man. That's why I enjoy these shows. This is the kind of thing that, if we didn't have a show, Ben, if there wasn't, like...
Okay, this is 157.41. Now remember what Kev Baker said. Yeah, if we didn't have a show, Ben...
all of this alternative media, I bet you me and you would still be digging into these kind of stories right now on our own anyway.
I would, one way or another. I know I would, but I really like what you were saying at the beginning. I'd go out of my head through loneliness. I'd go nuts. I'd be like these guys on desert islands who start seeing things or talking to volleyballs.
Well, no, you've definitely fallen into the right vibe.
What's so funny about that?
Love you to bits.
He's certainly fallen in with the right crowd because they lap up his rubbish. So there we go. Now that timestamp worked, didn't it? 157.41. I'll leave a link to that video below, and I'll leave that's exactly the same timestamp.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Now, I don't remember this. I have no memory of this at all. If I clicked that and came across that video, are you saying that I clicked on that link, came to that video, and denied that it was on any particular, that it was on that particular point? I mean, what are you saying here? What are you accusing me of, Steve? I don't remember any of this. As it turns out, I did say what you said I did. I did say this, made this comment about, needing the companionship of other people on the woo-woo side. And I used the metaphor of being on a desert island, because quite frankly that's what it's like. If you're not a woo-woo and you live in a world full of, if you are a woo-woo, you live in a world full of skeptics or normies or NPCs, you are isolated. And I made that point. I obviously did. I don't remember saying that, but I did. But you must realise there's so much material out there. I mean, I'm such a prolific user and figure of this kind of particular milieu and this community, that I can't always remember every single thing I say at a particular time. If you have something more specific in terms of evidence of not only that I did what you say I did, click that link, go somewhere and say I didn't understand it, or it wasn't that particular part of the video, or it's a different video. Not only that, but an actual evidence that points to my motives to deceive and to be dishonest in that situation. Because if you don't have that evidence, Kev, if you don't have that evidence, Steve, then what gives you the right even to say it to me?
Below. And you can have a look yourself. Twice I've left the comment that this is what it's really all about, Ben. If you didn't have this woo, you would have nothing. That's why you embellish and embrace it. It's not. You're not a researcher. You're an enthusiast. This is a hobby. And twice.
That's the word hobby is just so derogatory. It's like stamp collecting or something, or playing football. I have a job. I actually earn a living. I have a job like most people, and it's something I do when I'm not doing that. So technically that's a hobby, but it's using that term is just so derogatory.
Ben has claimed to have clicked on that timestamp, and the part of the video was nothing whatsoever to do with him being him dying of loneliness.
Look, I don't even remember this situation, Steve. I do not remember it. If I did that, firstly, did I do it? Secondly, if I did it, what was my motives for doing it? Was it just a simple mistake on my part? Why can't you just give me the benefit of the doubt and say, well, maybe Ben made a mistake here, rather than taking advantage of the situation to try and not misrepresent, what's the word? To claim that I am deliberately being dishonest here for no other reason. That's what you want me to be. It fits your narrative better if I am dishonest. So you see this as an opportunity to accuse me of dishonesty, whether or not you have any evidence that I was actually dishonest.
If he didn't have the world of woo.
Okay, maybe that's true. Maybe I said that. Maybe I meant it. All right, but I honestly don't remember this, and I don't recall at any time shying away from anything you say by pretending I haven't seen it, or pretending I don't understand it when I do, or anything like that.
And yeah, it's a shame, really.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
In a sense, I'm not really that different to many other people, am I? I've been to skeptic conferences as well. I went to the TAM London, and I met people who say, "Isn't it great to get together with other skeptics? Isn't it great?" You know, I live with a family. My wife is a believer in bloody spiritualism or something. It's nice to really get out and just hang out with people and talk about skeptic stuff from a skeptic point of view. Would you regard them the same way you regard me? You know, I mean, how am I different from anyone else? How am I different, Steve? Does the fact that I have these psychological forces operating on me within my life, and I've openly said this, I've openly talked about my post-pro blues and things like that. In a sense, you're only saying something that I've already admitted to, that I do have a problem with isolation. This is what I love about conferences. I often say this. I go to conferences, I hang out with other people. It's wonderful. Does that mean firstly, how different am I to other people? Secondly, does it automatically mean that I'm incorrect? I mean, are you actually saying that this factor means that I'm incorrect factually about anything I claim? Or does it contribute to that? In which case, again, it's a poisoning the well fallacy. It's an ad hominem fallacy. It's both of those things. Oh, carry on, Steve.
Ignoring what Cavett had to say and what Brazil had to say about Roswell is not research. It's just enthusiasm.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
No, I didn't ignore it. I don't remember what I actually said. I don't remember the gist of our conversation, but I do remember specifically having this dialogue with you, Steve, where you mentioned Brazil and Cavett. You mentioned these things. I did provide a counter argument to you, and I don't remember the actual details, but I distinctly remember having put in a counter argument to you. Now, I could go back and get the details. I could look up all the different sources that I looked up before, and we could repeat the debate we had earlier. I don't want to do that. Once I start doing that, though, I'll be doing it with everything, and I'll never stop. A reply to you will be like being on an eternal merry-go-round, where we just go round and round in circles, until such point as I get fed up and I get off the merry-go-round. And these skeptics do this all the time. They just drag you around in circles and circles. They drag you from one point to the next. You prove them wrong every time. You go back to the start. They just start to do the same thing, and people just get fed up with it and they leave. And the skeptic says, "Hooray, victory!" It's so wrong. It really is. And I didn't do this. I really didn't. Okay, well, let Steve carry on.
And of course, Ben's backing Trump because he believes Trump is going to be a disclosure president. I don't quite know what he expects Trump to disclose. Trump says he doesn't particularly believe in UFOs. Ben says Trump's lying. He's lying.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Now, Trump, we've already been through this. Trump is lying. He's withholding information because what he said is just ridiculous, considering what we know factually to be true. What has been admitted by Trump's very own Department of Defense to be true. He is the Commander-in-Chief, and he has given out a completely contradictory line to what his very own Department of Defense, with his authority, has published. Why didn't he just give us the usual? And why didn't he just do what David Cameron said when he was challenged by Richard D. Hall? Richard turned up at a hustings and asked him about UFOs. Cameron first he makes a joke about it, and then he just says the usual line, "Oh, well, we know that people see strange things in the sky. About 99.999% can be explained. The tiny fraction that can't, well, we'll get to the bottom of it eventually. Either way, we think they're of no defense significance. Our government is not interested in, our government stopped investigating these things in 1969, which is a lie, we know, by the way, and we're just going to leave it alone because it doesn't really bother us. We've got more important things to deal with." Why didn't Trump say that, Steve? Why didn't he? I've done an entire video on this, which I presume you've watched, seeing as you're so obsessed with me and my channel. Why don't you you've put a reply on that video. Do a reply video to that if you haven't already, and maybe I'll do a reply video to you. Either way, I'll respond to your questions.
Anybody that says that the UFO stuff is a UFO story is not UFO related, is lying. They're part of the cover-up, you know. That is not research.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
No, Steve. I do not say that. So you're accusing me now, or accusing people like me of saying everyone if there's a UFO event and someone says it's not ET and it's not aliens, then they're just part of the cover-up. I've never claimed that. It's not true, and I know it's not true. There's been occasions where I've actually said if a UFO event happens, someone comes and says, "Hang on, that's something else. It's not ET." And I've said, "Okay." Glenn Vaudrey, he's been on Hapanwo Radio. He was talking about that. The silver man, that creature that was seen at this nuclear research centre. Okay, he has presented a case, a very extensive case actually, that it was actually not an alien. It was actually a fireman dressed up in protective clothing against heat. And to be honest, it makes sense. I mean, I looked at what he said and I talked to the guy, interviewed him. And, I mean, more information might come to light, which indicates it's something else. But in the meantime, it's a very good interim conclusion. I don't think Glenn is part of the cover-up. I accept what he said. Why do you keep misrepresenting me like this? Why do you keep trying to crowbar my identity into a hole which is not shaped like me? You're trying to put a Ben-shaped peg in a non-Ben-shaped hole.
Supporting Roswell.
Supporting? What do you mean supporting Roswell? I support the extraterrestrial explanation for Roswell. Yes.
That bloody pentarch nonsense is not research.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Hang on. Pentarch nonsense. The Pentarch incident. I've done how many videos? I've done 4 videos on that. I've interviewed Gary Jones. I've interviewed Kaz Clark. It's been there twice now. I've been to Pentarch twice. And what's this? Oh, it's you are what? It's that nonsense. We're supporting that nonsense. It's, you know, you probably put comments on there, okay? If you put comments on there, I've replied to them. But simply saying this is nonsense and I'm supporting it is not research is not an argument. It's not a bloody argument.
Okay, on to the next bit. So there we have it. Ben Emlyn Jones, desperate for all the UFO stuff to be true. He tells us there's overwhelming evidence for some of these UFO claimed UFO encounters and crashes, yet we see none. I've never seen any.
I present this evidence all the time on my channel, which you watch continuously. What are you talking about?
Tangible evidence that extraterrestrials have been here, let alone that they've been here and crashed. As I've said before, it's never going to happen. You know, the technology is going to be such that it's not going to come here and crash. Ben says, well, aircraft crash. Of course, there would be no comparison between the technology. He has absolutely no grasp of how different interstellar technology would have to be. How different it would be from a conventional aircraft.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Right, in terms of conventional technology to alien technology, I'll give you a list of 3 ships, right? The Estonia, the Titanic, and the Mary Rose. All 3 are ships. They float on the water. They're designed to cross the sea. The first one was a Tudor warship from the 15th century. It sunk. The second one was an ocean liner from the early 20th century. It sunk. The third one was a cruise ferry from the late 20th century. It sunk. 3 ships with essentially the same. They're essentially more advanced versions of each other to do the same job. They're 3 objects, 3 machines that do the same thing. They all sunk. You say that this wouldn't happen to aliens, but you're making assumptions about who they are and what their capabilities are. Look, I believe in aliens and I don't do that. You don't believe in them and you're making assumptions about this non-existent thing. There's also another possibility. We call these things crash retrievals. Maybe we shouldn't use the word crash, even if it appears that way. Even if you see an object which is in fragments or very badly damaged or in pieces that has come down, including living beings that appear to be dead or injured, we there assume it's like an aeroplane crash, but should we make that assumption? Maybe we shouldn't call them crashes. Maybe there are other possibilities. Maybe for some reason this is something presented to us deliberately. They appear in this form deliberately. I mean, who knows? You seem to think you know, but you don't.
It gives an indication of how clueless he actually is. And some of the other rubbish that's floating around at the moment is just
rubbish floating around. Rhetoric, no argument.
Sort of way beyond drivel. It's just absolute nonsense. The Tesla steam turbine. Well, he needs money to refine it. Well, don't you think it'd be a good idea to actually show us what he's got working so far, so he can tell us what improvements he intends to make, how much power he's getting from just the air, from the water vapour in the air, how much power his machine is actually generating from thin air.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Okay, now I don't know enough about this particular subject. This is the Tesla turbine thing on Miles's channel. I haven't looked into it. I haven't seen this video that Miles has made yet. I will see it at some point, I think. But I don't know if you've listened to my interview with Rasa Vihari, not on the moon, not on the Apollo detectives, on her Panmo Radio, where he talks about his work in China in developing free energy systems. Now, the fact of the matter is, these things can't be done without money. Now, as soon as you say you need money, there's two ways of interpreting that. You could say, well, yeah, of course you need money because it costs money to develop this technology. Or you could say, oh, he wants money. It's obviously a fraud. It's a fraud, and that's all there is to it. There can be no other explanation than it's false. It's a fraud. Oh, dearie me. You're just doing the same thing as you did to me. You're interpreting every single thing that happens in the most ungenerous way possible.
And instead of having a wooden box with a shaft sticking out of it and a rubber band going around the generator. Obviously the thing in the wooden box is turning the generator, not vice versa. Why can't the whole thing be transparent? Why can't it be inspected?
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Now you're portraying what... I mean, I don't know enough about this particular case, but you're portraying what was on Mars's channel as one of these old-fashioned perpetual motion frauds, where they would have like what looked like a perpetual motion machine, but there'd be like a hidden clockwork motor inside it. These things do happen, but I don't know enough about this specific case to say that. But as for transparency, the Steon machine, the Orbo machine made by the Steon company in Ireland, it was kept in a transparent case. It was exhibited in shopping centres and museums and town halls in a transparent case. No doubt you'll raise the bar there, won't you? As soon as you see that, you'll come up with some other reason to dismiss it. You see, you raise the bar. This is what skeptics do. You keep pushing it up. You keep pushing the bar higher and higher. Every time you get evidence that satisfies you according to the conditions you set before, you just set new conditions. Skeptics do that all the time.
Why can't we have someone just take a look at it and write a report before any...
That happens! That's happened many times with many different inventions. Then the inventors tend to die. They fall off trains or they get poisoned.
One puts any money into it. And of course everyone with an IQ bigger than their shoe size knows precisely why. And Miles Johnson was trying to spruik his news channel. He was saying, oh, over our heads at the moment the Draco are fighting, and has anyone had a Draco spacecraft land in their back garden?
If there are Draco spacecraft, that's a perfectly good question. That's a perfectly good thing to say. It's a perfectly reasonable question.
Personally, haven't experienced that, and haven't seen the sort of activity that might suggest it's happening in the neighbourhood. So
yeah, why not? There was this thing in Belfast a couple of years ago, which I talked about on this channel.
It's more bloody rubbish. One thing I did think was quite amusing, and that was that Johnson said he was kicked out of Sky TV something like 20 years ago. I don't think he's worked since. He's been making up all this drivel to keep himself afloat.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Well, it just shows, like, if you make these assumptions, you do so at your own risk. The fact of the matter is, Miles was actually sacked from Sky TV, but he was sacked after he started his channel. It wasn't 20 years ago. It was much more recent. So you're gonna have to retract that, I'm afraid, Steve. It's an old slur, isn't it? You know, you just when someone falls on hard times and they do something like this, it's just they're just grifting. They're just making stuff up because they know it'll sell. And again, it's a substitute for rationally proving someone wrong, isn't it? And that's what you do. You do it all the time. You've done it to me. You've done it to Miles. You do it to everyone you can.
He probably made enough money to buy his house from Sky, I suspect, and then ended up making enough money on YouTube just to sustain him. But it looks like that's gone. But
Okay.
Well, hello.
Now we're starting a new video. This is the second video that is on Steve's channel. The first one is the one I've just done is called the Space Force and Some Woo. This one is called Fake Alien Invasion is Here. So we're now moving on to this second video of his, and this is my reply to him.
Again, and we hear some of these conspiracy people talking about a fake alien invasion, but they never say what form they think that fake alien invasion may take.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Yes, I do. Well, the thing is, we do. A lot of us do make educated guesses on how a fake alien invasion might be carried out. For example, Independence Day is a good model. I mean, it's an appalling film, as I've said many times, but it's interesting to watch because it is about an alien invasion. It's a film. If you've not seen it, well, I envy you. But if you do choose to watch it, it's very similar to War of the Worlds, only it's not as good. And it describes pretty much how they think this could be done. And then there's another scenario as well. It's in my book, Roswell Rising, a Novel of Disclosure, available at all good bookshops now. But you see, the thing about it is Steve will no doubt accuse me of just writing this book because I just want to make money off it. When the thing is, if I wanted to make money, Steve, I wouldn't have written this book. I'd have written a different one with a different plot. I could write for the mainstream. But anyway, I'll just show you how it works here. Now, this is the main character, Klein Quilly here. Appears in here we go, right? I'll just read you this segment here, which is how a fake alien, which is a scenario for a fake alien invasion. I must apologise for the spoilers if you're not read this book. Klein shrugged again. His animosity for Norman had melted. He almost felt sorry for the man. That's okay. I'm sorry I scratched your car. I know how alluring Gina can be. Gina returned from the conservatory. As she walked through the door, she froze and gasped. Look! She pointed. The weather had changed since Klein had arrived in New York. The clear blue sky was now covered in thin, high cloud. A squadron of disc-shaped objects were flying past, more speedily than any aircraft. They were completely silent. Klein, Norman, Gina, and Siobhan all got up and ran out onto the patio. My God, hissed Klein. They must be doing 400 knots. What are they, Klein? Asked Gina in a tremulous voice. I don't know, but I saw one floating over Midtown a few hours ago. Daddy, I'm scared. Siobhan put her arms around him. Klein counted 20 of the objects in a triangular formation. They disappeared into the distance, heading towards the city. The President was right, said Norman. They really are coming. There was a rolling, rumbling, cracking sound like thunder coming from the west. What's that? Asked Gina. A storm? Klein felt his stomach twist in dread. I don't think so. We'd better switch on the TV. They went indoors and Norman switched on his large television set. A special news broadcast was in progress. New York, Los Angeles, Houston. The flying saucer fleet are congregating over all major cities in the United States. The anchorman announced gravely from behind his desk. We are also receiving word from the BBC. Similar collections of these unknown aircraft have gathered above London. Also Paris, Madrid. Ladies and gentlemen, it looks as if the whole world is being covered by the strange objects. Where they come from, what do they want, nobody knows. The picture went blank. Nobody in the room spoke. It lit up again. The reporter was trembling, his professionalism straining. Stand by for another bulletin. We are receiving word that the vessels flying over New York have released missiles that have caused explosions in the city. The Empire State Building. Jesus Christ. The Empire State Building has been destroyed. We are receiving word of another attack on Los Angeles. Oh my God, muttered Norman. The aliens are invading. So, Steve, you might actually enjoy this book, so do get hold of a copy if you want to. But that is something when I wrote that scene, I wrote it after very, very careful consideration over what a fake alien invasion the form that a fake alien invasion might take. And yes, that was, sorry for the spoiler, but that was a fake alien invasion you're seeing there. So let's carry on.
I think a couple of them have actually said that there was going to be a fake alien invasion staged at the London Olympics a few years back. I think this probably would have looked a lot like this, you know. I mean, this is...
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Yeah, I was one of them. I was one of these people who said that there would be something like that might happen at the London Olympics, and there was a lot of reasons. The reasons why I thought that were numerous. The fact that red arrows weren't going to be there. There was some of the symbolism. There was some of the propaganda leading up to it. I was wrong, luckily, but that's what I thought was going to happen. Well, I don't believe I was wrong. I believe that there was going to be some kind of operation there. It was actually aborted at the last minute, probably within two to 3 weeks of the actual Olympics. It was done primarily because of the work of people like me, Ian R. Crane, and many, many other people. So yes, I do. Now the alien. Now, if there was some kind of alien invasion, it wouldn't look like anything you're seeing there. This is a. Now, if you go to Steve's channel, you can see it. It's even in the thumbnail. It's a balloon that is shaped like a flying saucer. Now, that it wouldn't look like that. I mean, the thing is, it's interesting actually, because people have used balloons to make people think and try and fool people into thinking they're flying saucers. There's the Avery Carlos, which is very interesting. The Avery Carlos is an operation where people created a fake UFO. It's what's it called? I can't be bothered to look it up now. They created a fake UFO, it's a documentary, and they flew it over Avebury, which is a meeting place for hippies and mystics and people like that. And the hope was they would create fake UFO sightings, and they would create an artificial UFO craze, and that it would go viral, and everyone would think, "Wow, there's UFOs in the West Country!" Wow. It backfired actually a little bit, because the people in Avebury actually did report the UFO. They did report it. They described it. The thing is, they reported it pretty much. They reported pretty much what they saw. They described the craft accurately. This big balloon with a couple of electric motors on it. They described it accurately. I think what the hoaxers were hoping there'd be loads of embellishments. There'd be people going, "Oh yeah, man, it came down, it shone a light down on me, and I felt enlightened." And another one would go, "Yeah, it picked me up with its mind powers, and then these aliens came and they probed me." Everyone was thinking there'd be all these embellishments, that word you love so much, but it wasn't. Which indicates that the so-called most gullible members of society are far better witnesses than people like you, skeptics, give them credit. So it's interesting, that documentary. I will look it up for you actually, just to tell you what it is. Let's have a look. Where is it? It is called Create a Fake UFO or something. A Very British UFO Hoax. You get it on YouTube. I might do a review of it at some point. It's quite amusing, because they go into detail about how they make this fake alien craft. It's very interesting indeed. Actually, I did think it was quite something. Okay, so yeah. Where was I? Yeah. Oh, let's Steve carry on.
Can you seriously imagine anyone being able to pull off a fake alien invasion?
Well, not if they're using a balloon like this. It's a big pink sort of balloon with some white bits underneath it. If you're using that, then no.
So this is another reason why these people won't. They'll never debate anybody that's going to put up a reasonable case.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
We would never debate anyone who's going to put up a reasonable case. What? What? Do I not do that? Am I not doing that right now with you, Steve? What the hell are you talking about?
Against such an event, they'll say, "Oh yeah, yeah." I'll leave a comment on Ben's channel saying, no one could pull off a convincing. No nation on Earth or collection of nations on Earth possess the technology to pull off a convincing fake alien invasion. Oh yes, they have.
Yes, they do. They do, though. That's the thing.
Oh yes, they have. That's all they'll say. They won't say what form they think it'll take. What is it? Inflatable flying saucers at the Saturday afternoon football match, maybe. All over the world, there's a lot of inflatable flying saucers, isn't it?
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
It would not be inflatable flying saucers, Steve. It would be far more sophisticated craft, as I describe in my book, which you can get at all good bookshops now. I'm overdoing that, aren't I? Yeah, but you see, now as far as inflatable flying saucers, now you remember the 1986 closing ceremony of the Olympics, which is here we go, Olympics closing ceremony UFO. Now, if you put that in, you should get, yeah, this is Olympics closing ceremony. I think it was the Los Angeles Olympics. Los Angeles. Because what happens is it there? Yeah, here we are. Olympic Games, Los Angeles, 1984, closing ceremony spaceship. And you actually see, it's actually really quite amazing, this little clip on YouTube. You see this, it's the Olympics closing ceremony, and you see it's actually just like Close Encounters, which is probably inspired by, you see a flying saucer. It's quite well designed, actually. So I'm just skipping through it because I've seen it before. And it comes down in this amazingly, brilliantly lit stadium, these really elaborate ceremonies, you know what it's like. And this alien gets out. This alien climbs out of it. It's really quite something. It's really quite something to behold.
100 years.
Honestly, now that I think was, I don't know if, I can't remember if it was inflatable, or was it suspended from a helicopter or from a crane? I can't remember. I think it was, a helicopter would have been too noisy. I think it was from a large crane. I'll look into that, but that was obviously did not fool the people in the stadium. People didn't look at that and think, well, the aliens are really landing to congratulate us on the Olympics. Steve, no one actually thought that, I don't think.
And what happens? You know, they said that there's going to be a fake alien invasion at the London Olympics. So what?
Well, there wasn't in the end, but that's what we thought would happen, yeah.
Excuse me, what exactly do they think would happen? The flying saucer turns up, hovers above the Olympics, and then what happens?
Well, I just described a possible scenario.
Lands, people run away and scatter, it starts beaming down laser weapons, directed energy weapons. You know, how is the scenario going to play out?
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Well, Steve, we have actually, myself and the people who produced Independence Day. There's other films. There's obviously War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, which is a very old story. It's over 120 years old. There's Signs, M. Night Shyamalan's film. There's many hypothetical scenarios in which we explain exactly what's going to happen. And of course, Roswell Rising, a novel of disclosure, and its 2 sequels. You know, what if we got UFO Truth instead of UFO Lies? All these, go buy the book and shut me up, all right? If you don't want me doing these ads, shut me up, buy the book. Steve, obviously, we do describe, and some of them, you know, what you've just said, what you've just sort of like said with a sort of question mark is perfectly possible. It may well be something exactly like that, if such a thing were to take place.
Because if that happened, a terrestrial flying saucer turns up pretending to be an alien flying saucer at a huge sports event and starts firing lasers at people, someone's going to turn up, probably from the Army or the Air Force, and they're going to shoot it full of holes. Because it's not going to... because it won't be alien technology, it will be defeatable. As soon as the alien casualties start piling up, it will be revealed very quickly that they are very human.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
So, now I have to refer you to my Nottinghamshire Roswell talk. It's the most recent one I think I did was at Swansea, the SUFON, the Swansea UFO Network, which is the best one, I think. It's the best version of that talk. So you're saying that if everyone on the news was telling you it was aliens, if the government was telling you it was aliens, are you somehow saying that a mere fact would dissuade people from that? In that talk, I go into great details about the power of persuasion that the authorities have through the media. The fact is that if, for example, I'm going to give the example of a flying saucer crashing in a busy crossroads in the middle of a city. Lots of people would see it. They might see the aliens getting out. But then they go home, they switch on the TV, and a newsreader with a bright face comes on and said, "There was chaos in downtown Manhattan today when a bouncy castle at a fun fair broke loose in the wind and it landed in the middle of a crossroads on Fifth Avenue. Lots of people saw it. It was shaped like a flying saucer. And there were also some people came along to try and catch it. They happened to be some of the variety acts, and they were dressed like aliens." What are you going to believe, Steve? Are you going to disbelieve the newsreader? Are you going to say, are you as a general member of the public, not like someone like yourself who has knowledge of these things, but somebody who doesn't even think about it? What are you going to say? I mean, it's amazing how, you know, there is a lack of awareness of this subject. I mean, take Rin Michaelis, for example, who I've done 2 videos with now. Rin Michaelis she's a very, very intelligent and very inquisitive young woman who thinks quite outside the box on many, many issues. But when I brought up the subject of UFOs, she kind of clammed up. She sort of like really her conversation ground to a halt, and I had to change the subject. It's clearly something that's not gone through her head. It's something she's not considered. Why should she? It's never been really anything that people have been asked to consider before. I think you misunderstand. You seem to be very good at playing amateur psychologist with me and going on about my loneliness issues and talking to volleyballs and things like that. But you don't. When it comes to mass culture and psychology, I think you underestimate the power of the official sources of information. And what's more, you say they'd shoot it. The army would come along and shoot it through full of holes. Not if there's a secret contingency plan for dealing with this sort of thing. They may not. Secondly, if they do, it may not work because these aren't balloons. Of course, if you take a gun and you shoot at a balloon, it's going to come down because you will hole it and the lifting gas or the hot air will leak out. But Steve, what if it's not that? What if it's run by something else? What if it's something what if the creators take that into account and produce, they produce armor. They armor it against small arms fire. I think you need to think this through again, Steve. You really do. I'll carry on with this. What Steve said.
So, if there's any conspiracy theorists out there that spruik this fake alien invasion drivel, would like to explain exactly how
fake alien invasion and drivel is a rhetoric, not an argument.
How they think it would play out, and exactly how they think that people could be fooled, what sort of technology they would be using. I suppose they're going to say, well, it's going to be from the secret space program.
Yes.
No such thing, of course. No,
there is such a thing. I've discussed that. I suspect that in the likelihood of a fake alien invasion, esoteric technology would be used, anti-gravity, free energy, etc.
And
holograms, Project Bluebeam, what they used on 9/11 to create the images of the plane in the sky and the planes.
Space program. We don't have a Starfleet. No one's flying around in a captured alien spacecraft.
Well, not captured, but what about
like in Stargate or Blake 7? It's all science fiction.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
No, firstly, I'm glad you're a fan of Blake 7 anyway, because that's brilliant. It's quite likely people are flying around in some kind of craft that the design might have come from the research into the debris of salvaged flying saucers that have come to grief on the Earth's surface. Not only that, but of course humans, we don't want to be outdone by the aliens. Many human inventors have come up with this kind of thing. Just watch Andrew Johnson and his various videos. There's I can't remember what they're called, but he's done several videos about this, which are really excellent, where he traces free energy but not for the masses. That's one, and he talks about anti-gravity and free energy in his various videos. It's very, very good indeed. Please do check those out. Some of it might be based on extraterrestrial technology, others invented right here on Earth by humans. But it's quite likely it's been developed, people are using it, you just because you can't fly to Adelaide on it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Now, I suspect this resembles the Roswell craft quite accurately. As we can see, it's sort of inflatable. It's got a dome on top. See that? A little dome on the top there. Lots of rather convincing. Hang on, let's get my rather nice Parker mechanical pencil.
Oh bloody hell, he's bigger.
He's
showing off
nice, now. Extremely convincing portholes all around here. Look. I don't know whether this is supposed to be beaming down something here. There's a person in this for scale.
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Now, I don't know if Steve's being sarcastic here, but he's obviously being sarcastic in the sense that this is a balloon we're seeing in front of it. It's actually, you'll see on his channel, a big purple disc flying saucer, classic saucer. Underneath there's some white superstructures. The things that he calls portholes are more like polka dots. And the things that could be beams of light are like little... They're like some kind of cage, but they're obviously made out of inflatable bags that are hanging below the craft. And you see there is a person for scale there, so you can see how big it is. This is not what the Roswell craft looks like. If you're making a joke, oh, this is a balloon and that was a weather balloon, ha ha ha, then no. But this is obviously a balloon, Steve. That's all it is. It's a balloon. Anyone can see that, and no one's going to be fooled by this.
Looks like it looks like the welcoming committee for the aliens is actually a pearly king from East London has gone along to say, well, welcome to the planet, guys. This is, of course, before it gets vaporized, because remember, we have to remember this is a fake alien invasion. Okay.
I think his point is that this is what he thinks a fake alien invasion would look like. Some guy in a sports stadium with a very obvious balloon flying over him. It will be nothing like that, Steve. Nothing like that at all.
It probably doesn't help that it's got made in China written on it in Chinese. But I suppose, you know, the average conspiracy theorist will say, oh, it's hieroglyphics. Hieroglyphics!
What the fucking fuck? Fuck me!
Now, there are occasions where people see emblems and writing that appears not to be of this world. Lonnie Zamora saw a strange insignia on the side of the egg-shaped object he saw at Socorro, wherever it was, in 1962, I believe. UFO insignia is very rare, it's unusual. As for script, people have often seen strange markings on something which they interpret as writing. Now, it's not hieroglyphics, it's not Chinese. Hieroglyphics is from ancient Egypt. Chinese, of course, is a modern language that uses a pictographic script. Now, it's interesting that on the Kecksburg incident, where a bell-shaped or cone-shaped object came down in a wood in Pennsylvania, people describe saying there was what looked like, they describe it as hieroglyphics written on this object. Now, it's possible that it was Russian. Russian, of course, uses the Cyrillic script like many languages from Eastern Europe. It's possible that that's what it was, but I don't believe the Kecksburg incident was something Russian. Now, the Kecksburg incident, I should say, as aside, I don't think was extraterrestrial. I think it was something made on this Earth, and the full story of that is very interesting indeed, which I don't have time to tell now.
You can see the alien writing on it, you know. What it actually says is made in China, you know, made in Taiwan.
He's joking, because you can't see anything like that written on it from this distance.
Made in Hong Kong.
It can't be made in all those places, Steve.
So, if any of these conspiracy people are out there, and they would, they're the people, especially if they're the people that would say, you know, fake alien invasion is coming, there's a possibility of a fake invasion, prepare for a fake alien invasion.
Yes. In fact, I've often said that this is a distinct possibility. I think it's quite likely that the most likely form of disclosure we will get, at least initially, is fake disclosure. And it could involve something like, it may not be a direct invasion, but it may be like a no-problem reaction solution in a sense. There are hostile aliens out there. We need to do something. We need the Space Force, because the Space Force is connected to this for that reason. It's all to do with what Carol Rosin said.
Perhaps you'd leave a comment below and tell me exactly, and the rest of the viewers, of course, all 15 of them, that exactly how you think this master plan would play out?
I've just explained. What's more, I'm doing more than leaving a comment. I'm making a reply video to explain. And of course, this comes back to it, because along with all this points about the Space Force, the Space Force may well have been created with this very scenario in mind. It's, from what I've done entire videos on this, but basically the capabilities that has been claimed, or the mission that's been proposed for the Space Force, could not happen if the existing technology was all that was there, which indicates that we may be leading up to some kind of disclosure of some kind of esoteric propulsion system or power plant.
How many ships would be involved? Where would they go? What form would the attack?
I don't know, Steve. I don't know all the details, but I've given you a scenario. There were many fictional scenarios. I've given you a list of them, including my own. You know, Roswell Rising, a novel of disclosure. Yeah, I've given a list of them. Independence Day, Signs, War of the Worlds. It's all there.
Take. What would happen when the bodies started piling up and were very rapidly identified as being human?
Well, there's no reason to think that would ever happen for the reasons I've explained.
What would happen then? Doesn't look like the
I actually hope that it's possible that if enough people are aware, should something like this happen, we will take a step back. We will have a moment of pause, as Ian R. Crane says, and we'll think, is this what it appears to be? So it's not set in stone. If a fake alien invasion is attempted, it may not work. The trick might not work. 9/11 didn't work, did it? Too many people saw through it.
London Olympics was terribly popular, does it? I mean, look at all these seats are empty.
It's not the London Olympics, I don't think, Steve.
Perhaps it was. Do they have cricket at the Olympics? Maybe it was.
No, cricket is not an Olympic event. I hope it becomes one, because cricket is my favourite sport.
Cricket.
And you're Australian, so it's probably yours as well.
I can't imagine that being terribly popular. Someone said to me, because I've lived in Australia for a very long time, someone said to me, how can you be... I've always said I hate cricket. And they said, well, how can you be an Englishman and hate cricket?
I thought Steve does come from here. He is a Pom by birth, of course. Do you hate cricket, Steve?
And I thought, well, wasn't cricket invented in China? I don't know.
I think it was invented in the Netherlands, actually. Football was invented in China. We're going off topic here, Steve. Let's get back to the alien, shall we?
But
so I didn't actually edit this bit. So I didn't actually have time to edit this bit because I had to do something else, and I wanted to process the video. So
I said, well, there doesn't seem to me to be an awful lot to it. You know, someone knocks 3 small broom handles in the ground, and someone stands in front of the broom handles with a plank. Someone then throws a ball at him, and if he manages to hit the ball with the plank, they go and get the ball and throw it at him again. I thought, well, that's pretty tedious stuff, really, isn't it?
Oh, Steve, honestly, you don't understand the noble game.
It doesn't sort of doesn't.
So I should have edited this bit out. Sorry, guys, you don't mind, do you? If I let him ramble on.
Anyway, I don't know whether this is actually a cricket match. It looks like someone might be lighting a fire there under the flying saucer.
I don't think so. I think that's some kind of signboard. It's not. This is not the Olympic Stadium anyway. It's some other kind of sports ground.
To deflate a little bit here. That could also be a bit of a giveaway.
Well, it wouldn't be balloons, would it?
Imagine a real alien spacecraft actually deflating before your eyes.
Well, if it's not a balloon, it won't.
No one up in the dome as well. You know, this would be difficult to fake as well, wouldn't it? You need some sort of platform inside the balloon.
You're assuming it's a balloon
for your aliens to stand on. And you'd have to go and get some super skinny people as well, because people expect aliens to be skinny and small.
Well, not all of them are. Some of them are big, some of them are
stereotypical alien. And probably put them in wetsuits, like they did with the Ariel school.
No, they didn't, Steve. No, they didn't. You've been through that. It's you speculating, you're making stuff up as you go along.
The convincing fake alien invasion there. I mean, for me, I'd run for my life if I saw this, especially if it was sort of bobbing around like a balloon.
Honestly, he shows this, and this is your scenario for a fake alien invasion, a very obvious novelty balloon, and you say because this wouldn't fool you, nothing else would. Is that it?
But if you're out there, Ben or Mr. Shrimpton,
It's not me. No, if it was Michael Shrimpton, he'd just be saying the Germans did it.
Or anyone else out there that thinks that anybody on Earth could pull off a convincing fake alien invasion. I'm sure there's quite a few out there. Please leave some comments below and let us all know exactly what you have in mind. How would that scenario play out?
I think it wouldn't be that difficult.
How many ships would be involved? What would happen when they got destroyed?
We don't have to give you all the details, do we, Steve?
If someone thought it was a real alien spacecraft and it was shooting at people, it's going to get destroyed pretty quickly. And they're going to find out the crew are human very quickly.
They? Who's they?
How on Earth, yeah. No pun intended. How on Earth do you think anybody could pull off a convincing alien invasion?
I told you how. It would actually be a piece of cake.
Actually, just before
if you personally have the technology, first you'd need the ability to do it convincingly using methods that are not necessarily ones that could be picked apart. Secondly, you need to have controls of certain flows of information, which again you could do very easily.
I'll see if I can find something to show you and make another comment. So just hang on a tick. Right, this is...
Oh, we moved on to another picture now. It's a picture of what looks like a real flying saucer or something from the movies, which is obviously not a balloon.
This is what I wanted to show you. Here Ben Emlyn Jones and other people, and they'll talk about Bob Lazar and these other people that supposedly worked on flying saucers, and they say they've got these sort of hemispheres underneath.
That's something that comes up again and again. You have like these embedded hemispheres, like ball bearings underneath the craft. I mean, I don't know what their function is, but this is often reported. It's often reported with the flying triangles and the flying saucers.
And these are something to do with the propulsion, the anti-gravity propulsion. And I thought, well, that sounds to me very, very much like the flying saucers. Very much like this one, in fact, that are from the TV series,
The Invaders.
The Invaders.
Ah, that's it, The Invaders. Yeah, that's it's something that's come up before. But I don't know why you brought this up, Steve. What's your point?
It all began with a deserted diners.
Oh, but it's Cold War propaganda in disguise, but yeah.
A lonely road. So yes, all this UFO nonsense comes from science fiction.
Hold on. So you were assuming that reports of UFOs are inspired by TV and movies. This is not original. This is what bloody what's his name, Brian Dunning said about the grey aliens. He said no one saw grey aliens and flying saucers before Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the movie that came out in 1977. Truth of the matter is, yes, they did. In fact, you're putting the cart before the horse, Steve, because you know Robbie Graham. He got in touch with the production designer for Close Encounters, and he said, you know those little grey aliens that come out of the mothership at the end? Where did you get the idea for those? And the man replies, oh, I just phoned up one of the people who sees them regularly. So you see, it's not the case of you think life imitates art. Maybe it's the other way round. Maybe art imitates life. Maybe the producers of The Invaders, just like Close Encounters, worked with real ufologists and analysed real UFO reports for the design of their props and their particular special effects.
Impossible for a fake alien invasion to be pulled off by anybody.
It's not impossible.
A lot of the descriptions of the alien spacecraft, interesting that they all take a saucer form.
Not all of them do. Alien spacecraft can appear in all kinds of shapes and sizes, as they do in fiction.
Many take a saucer form. After Kenneth Arnold's description of these crescent.
What Kenneth Arnold described was nothing like what we're seeing here in this Invaders movie, or in most of the science fiction films we see.
Shaped craft skimming across the sky like saucers skimming across a pond.
Correct.
And the press picked up on the term flying saucers because it just had a ring to it. Well, it does, doesn't it? You've got to admit it. It's got flying saucers. It's got a definite ring to it.
The origins of the term flying saucer are correct. It was an offhand remark by by Kenneth Arnold, which inspired an entire piece of terminology which we still use today. I think I know where Steve's going with this. He's about to make a point, so let's hear him say it.
And it's stuck. And of course, people have been seeing flying saucers ever since, and describing them very much as they appear in science fiction. Strange.
I see. So the term flying saucer that Kenneth Arnold uses got into people's minds and fueled our imagination. So we started really seeing saucer-shaped craft? No, disc-shaped craft, and it's completely separate from the point that Kenneth Arnold made. Besides, disc-shaped craft don't look like saucers, do they? They simply are disc-shaped, like a saucer is disc-shaped. You couldn't put a teacup on top of one of these alien spacecraft, could you? No, the disc-shaped objects were seen before Kenneth Arnold. There are photographs from the 1920s. There's one from 1927, a very good one from Germany, which shows a classic disc-shaped object. They appear in Renaissance paintings. There's that famous painting of the Madonna with the dog pointing at the sky, and you see a disc-shaped object. This has got nothing to do with Kenneth Arnold. They appear in cave paintings thousands of years old. You can't possibly claim that Kenneth Arnold. What you're claiming is Kenneth Arnold's statement about saucer skipping on a pond went into people's heads. It went into the filmmakers. The filmmakers produced them, and then people started seeing what they saw on the movie screens. No, Steve, it's the exact opposite of what actually happened.
Usually enough. Who would have picked that, eh? All right, well, that's just another quick video, and.
It's taken me. It's going to be. It's a long reply.
If you've made it this far, as always, if you've made it this far into the video, many thanks for.
Okay. This is going to be quite a long reply video to two quite short videos by Steve. I didn't expect that. But anyway, basically, once again, I think Steve Mumbling has made a video. I've replied to him. I've called him out on all the things that he gets wrong in both those videos. I think I've done so successfully. Obviously, he's going to comment. He may well make his own reply video. But you, the Herpanmo TV viewer, can be the judge of who is right and who is wrong. And I'm confident you'll admit that I get the upper hand in this one. But anyway, there's lots more to come. Thank you for watching Herpanmo TV. Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity. Stop the New World Order.